studio as we talk and bring you the very best in Chattanooga news. This is a sports show, and I know many of you have probably come to like to listen to Cowboy Up with Tex at this time, and Tex will be back, and I will be moving to my own spot in the day at 1 p.m. But for now, I'm filling in for Tex this week with my show, Clutch, with Keon Rose. We talk about sports, and we always come through for you with the best in sports news. Now, here's the thing, and I want to talk about a story that depressed me and sickened me and literally made my stomach turn upside down. I didn't even know whether or not to be angry when I read the story because I didn't know a lot of the facts. We still don't know what's just pure allegation and what's fact at this moment. But NBA star, Chicago Bulls star point guard Derrick Rose has been accused of being involved in a gang rape. And that is about as disgusting a way to start your morning. I read that this morning and my stomach turned upside down. And also, what the heck? That just came out of left field. The first thing that I saw on my newsfeed, and I couldn't understand what I was seeing. And I had to double take, and I thought, well, maybe it's the Onion, but the Onion would never put out anything that crass and actually not funny. So I read the story. It's being reported by TMZ. A woman that's known only right now as Jane Doe is accusing Derrick Rose of drugging her and raping her with at least one other person, maybe two. And here's the thing. We think that we know athletes. We think that we see them in interviews. We see them play all the time. We know their faces. They're instantly recognizable to us. We think we know them. And while I'm not saying that Derrick Rose is guilty or innocent, I have no idea. I am saying my first thought was to jump to his defense, to say, hey, I don't think that's something that Derrick Rose would do. But do I know Derrick Rose really? No, I honestly don't. I like Derrick Rose, the player. 2010 MVP, him winning it over LeBron, which a lot of people disagree with. I think that actually was the right decision. That Derrick Rose MVP candidacy, that was amazing. That's some of the most explosive basketball I think I've ever seen from a guard in my whole life. And you want to look at all of those things and say, I've seen Derrick Rose in commercials, and he looks like just such a nice, laid-back guy. How could Derrick Rose be involved in something like this? But we don't know. And I think that speaks to partially how we view athletes. But it also speaks to when it comes to women bringing up cases of rape, how easily they can be dismissed. And that's really the wrong way to go about it, to say, well, this is obviously a shakedown. This is obviously her looking at Derrick Rose, seeing that Derrick Rose is worth about $200 million and going, hey, this is how I can get some cash. Now, this was alleged to have happened 2 years ago. She said that she didn't come out with the story because she was scared and ashamed. And I hear some cynical people already going, oh, see, there it is. If it was real, she would have come out with it 2 years ago. But that's a real thing. Rape victims really are afraid and really are scared. I mean, how callous and cold do you have to be to just dismiss that and throw it out of the way and just say that doesn't mean anything? It does. Now, does she have any legs to stand on? The thing is with the story is that it's so detailed. You know, she said that she was in one location with Derrick Rose and a couple of his friends, and that she believes that she was drugged. And then she was able to get a friend to come pick her up. The friend took her back to her house, and they followed, and they broke in where she then alleges that she was raped. And so there's a level of detail there that leads me to believe not that this is true, but that there might be something here. This isn't just hot air. This is something with some legs. Maybe not everything, and as more of the truth comes out, we'll see. But if this is true, it looks very, very bad for Derrick Rose. It's not something that's going to be going well for him at all. And it's part of this larger story of his career arc. A guy that looks like he was drafted in 2008 by the Chicago Bulls, looked like he was on track to be a bona fide superstar in the NBA. And I think that Derrick Rose can be a superstar in the NBA, but he's like one tier short of being a superstar. And it's because of all the knee injuries that he's gone through, that he's actually played little over 100 games in the last 3 seasons. I mean, NBA season is 82 games long. That's not a whole lot of games to play in 3 years. And he's gone through a whole lot. And this is probably the biggest blow to his career. It's one thing to have a reputation as a guy that gets injured a lot. You can't help being injured. But it's a completely other thing to be known as a guy that's a rapist. That stink is never going away. Even if it turns out that he's true, that it's not true, rather, and that he was not involved in this, that's something that's going to hang over him for the rest of his career and for the rest of his life. And I hope for his sake that it's not true. Derrick Rose is one of my favorite basketball players, and I really don't want this to be a thing that is true. So that's something that hangs over you for the rest of your life, even if you get cleared or even if you are able to settle out of court. Kobe was caught up with the rape allegations in Eagle, Colorado. A woman claimed that Kobe raped her, and Kobe settled out of court. Nothing was ever proven. The police were able to prove that there were sexual relations, but they were never able to prove that it was rape. But Kobe has never escaped that, and he never will. For better or for worse, it's always going to be a black cloud hanging over his head. You go even further back to the year 2000. The Baltimore Ravens are in the Super Bowl, and Ray Lewis is seen fleeing the crime of a murder. Star linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, played his whole career in Baltimore, ended up winning another Super Bowl in his final season, and it could have been the perfect story of a career, and for the most part it is. But even though Ray Lewis was never officially connected with that murder, it's a stink that hangs over his career, and it's never going away. So we have to be careful with stuff like this, but also it must be awful to be connected to this. But you know what would be worse than that? Worse than the stink of that hanging over Derrick Rose's head? The fact that if this had happened, that's the only thing that's worse. That if he actually did this, he's joining a long list of athletes involved in rape and other deplorable activities. And you want to give these guys a pass, but at some point early in an athlete's career, especially a guy with a special talent, and with Derrick Rose, everyone saw that he was going to be a star when he was a child. Like, we got to start telling these guys no, and much, much earlier than when they're originally, before we get to this point in their lives where they're adults and friends tell them no and women tell them no, and they're just not used to hearing it. And I think there's the real tragedy there, where you've got allegedly Derrick Rose, but even in the case of that, Darren Sharper is a guy that's been in the news recently, the former safety of the New Orleans Saints. He's a guy that he's a serial rapist, for lack of a better word. Darren Sharper has been accused by several women in several different states at different points in his career for drugging and raping them. And I don't know at what point in his career that he thought that was okay, but I imagine that that's very, very early on. That's something that women never told him no until one day they did, and he didn't know what to do about that, so he took matters into his own hands. That's a scary thing to think about. That there's people with such levels of entitlement existing on this planet, and not just existing on this planet, but they actually believe that they're entitled to sex or entitled to dominance and entitled to money and various things, that when someone finally tells them no, they have no idea how to deal with it. And I think that's sad, because we're the ones that deify them. We're the ones that put them up on this pedestal, that I like Derrick Rose, the basketball player, so I'm willing to give Derrick Rose, the human being, a pass. Well, I won't. Again, if this is true, but I won't give Darren Sharper, the human being, a pass. He was a great NFL safety. He was really good. And probably one of the better safeties in the league when he played, but we can't give him a pass. And I really like what Steve Spurrier said, the head coach of the University of South Carolina, when he talked about his players and domestic violence. He doesn't give him a second chance on that one. I believe that the exact quote was, you punch a woman, you hit a girl, you're done. You're done. You can transfer somewhere else. You can go somewhere else. But you hit a girl and you're on this team, you're finished. I buy into that. I believe that. If you believe that you are actually bettering these athletes and making them better human beings, you tell them no. And you tell them no in college, and you tell them no in high school, and you tell them no in middle school, that you see these people as horrible, or as these transcendent talents, and you make them into horrible people simply because you don't have the ability to tell them to stop. And it starts early. It starts very, very early. You know, my favorite basketball player in the league is John Wall. I'm a Washington Wizards fan. My favorite player in the league is the best player who plays for my team. So John Wall is a guy I really like. His story of how he grew up as a troubled young man after the death of his father, because he was told by his mother, you are not going to play basketball and you are not going to go anywhere in life if you don't stop acting out, if you don't stop throwing temper tantrums, if you don't start listening to your coaches. Like, there's a woman in John Wall's mother, her name is Frances Pulley. She told him no. And I think he's a better person for it now. He's never gotten in trouble with the law. He's never gotten in trouble off the court. And he's a very fiery person on the court, but he's never gotten in trouble outside of the field of play. And that's because someone had the gall to tell him, you know what? You can't do that. And when it comes to Derrick Rose, I really hope that's not as bad as it sounds. So far, the worst thing that I've ever heard that Derrick Rose has done is that he cheated on the SAT, or he tried to cheat on the SAT. And that's bad. I don't know if that's necessarily a sense of entitlement there, since, you know, lots of people cheat on tests, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And his lawyer released a statement earlier saying that basically the woman who's now known right at this moment as Jane Doe saw his worth. She saw, he's worth $200 million, and she's going after him. And the allegations weren't true 2 years ago. They're not true now. So we'll see if that actually holds up to actually being true, or if any of these allegations hold water. I personally hope not, for at least the sake that there's one less person that we can call a rapist in this world, but more so because I just don't want that for him. I really, really don't. I'm a sports fan, and I don't think that anybody wants that to taint the air of any sport. I'm Keon Rose, and you're listening to Clutch. We'll talk a little bit more about Derrick Rose and Daryl Dawkins next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Did you know that 1 out of 10 Americans will be diagnosed with what is considered to be a rare disease, and that it could take up to 3-5-8 years to diagnose that disease? Find out how my next guest, Jared Heyman, is using the internet to cut that time to less than 3 months. Don't miss Jared Heyman this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Saudi Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You are listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose, no relation to Derek Rose, Pete Rose, Malik Rose, any of the other Roses in sports that you can think of. No relation. I am talking today about Derek Rose and his unfortunate rape allegations. There's a young woman alleging that Derek Rose was involved in drugging her and gang raping her, and I, for one, hope that that's not true. You're listening to Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and you can follow us in your car if you listen to AM 1240. You can also follow us online at hotnewstalkradio.com. If you search for the TuneIn Radio app on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, you can search Hot News Talk Radio on there as well. Give us a follow, press play, and you can have Hot News Talk Radio wherever you go. Also, we're on Twitter, and you can tweet at us. We interact. We're not one of those gigantic stations. You send a tweet to ESPN, you never hear from them ever again. It's just lost in a sea of tweets. We'll interact with you. We talk to you. You report, the world decides. That's Hot News Talk Radio for you. Another bit of sad news is former NBA player Darryl Dawkins died today at the age of 58. One of the premier dunkers in the history of the league. One of the probably top 10 dunkers of all time. Darryl Dawkins died today at 58. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the Dawkins family. It was a heart attack that killed him. Kyrie Irving of the Cleveland Cavaliers is an interesting case to me because he's such a great player. And the Cleveland Cavaliers had an opportunity to win the NBA Finals last season, this past summer. And Kyrie Irving was not playing. because he had a stress fracture on his kneecap and he tore his ACL. Just boom, boom, back to back, horrible news. And I wonder about the Cleveland Cavaliers because LeBron James left the Miami Heat for one big reason, which is that they couldn't put a team around him that was going to be able to beat a team from the Western Conference, right? Like the Miami Heat with LeBron James would do what any team with LeBron James would do, which is mow through the entire Eastern Conference, mow through the entire Eastern Conference in the playoffs, and then beat whoever in the Eastern Conference Finals and then show up in the NBA Finals. But they couldn't put together a team that would beat a Western Conference team. They were able to beat the San Antonio Spurs 3 years ago, but the Spurs came back the next season on their revenge tour and made the Heat look sorry. That didn't look like an even matchup at all. The Spurs looked so superior. It was the ultimate revenge run for the Spurs, but the Heat didn't even look like they belonged in the same league with San Antonio. And now you've got a situation here where Kyrie Irving, the point guard of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're one of their stars, has had a knee injury that's going to have him out till team doctors say at least January of next year. And I have to worry about Cleveland because Cleveland looks something like that Miami Heat team that could not beat an Eastern Conference team. They couldn't beat him, not because Dwayne Wade was bad, but because Dwayne Wade was injured. Dwayne Wade is always injured. He's just been breaking down in his career. And the same thing is true for Kyrie, except Kyrie's much younger than D Wade, and he's breaking down. They have a guy in Chris Bosh down in Miami that he's an incredibly talented player. Moved him from power forward to center, so he's playing the biggest position on the floor, and he looks, at least when he's playing that position, he looked out of sorts. He didn't always look comfortable. He wanted to shoot a lot. He didn't necessarily want to be down low, bang with the other big guys. And that didn't necessarily, it suited the Heat in some ways on offense. It opened up their ability to score, but it didn't suit them on defense. They had to really find a rim protector. They brought in Chris Birdman Anderson. They tried a lot of things. They tried to patch a lot of that hole, and they really couldn't do it. San Antonio was too diverse. And the same thing seemed to happen to Cleveland. You've got Tristan Thompson down low, and you've got Timofey Mozgov, and those two guys want to bang down low, but it was the inverse. It was the Golden State Warriors stretching Cleveland out so much that those guys that want to be down low can't guard any of their shooting big men. They chose not to go with Andrew Bogut, the Warriors did. And you're looking at Cleveland and you're like, is LeBron going to win a title with Cleveland? Is that actually possible? They've always got a shot because he's LeBron. But is this team actually designed to go the distance, or are they designed to just beat up on the Eastern Conference and lose in the finals? I'm getting the feeling that if this team, as currently constructed, were to go back to the Eastern Conference Finals next year, they'd get smoked by whoever they ran into. I don't think that Kyrie holds up. I don't think that he's got it in him because he's always dealing with injuries, but it's not just injuries, it's the same lower leg injuries that he has been dealing with. Doesn't look good for Cleveland. It really, really doesn't. When it comes to college football, we have the new playoff system. The current system now, and I'm a huge fan of it, and I know a lot of other people are also a very huge fan of it. The current system is a playoff system, and I'm shocked. I am shocked that it took this long for the committee to have a system that has a playoff. Before, we were using a coaches poll and using computers to rank teams, and then the two teams that were number 1 and number 2 at the end of the season, they would play each other in the national title game. Now we have a committee that goes through everything, and you try and rank the top 4 teams, and those teams will play in a playoff to try and decide who the best team is, which makes sense to me because how can a computer decide who the 2 best teams in the country are? It didn't make any sense before. Now we have this system, and one of the teams that's considered one of the top 4 teams in the nation is the Baylor Bears. And Baylor is an interesting team because of their recent history as a laughingstock in all of college football. They were horrible. They were dreadful. And they were a joke in the Big 12 necessarily. I mean, they were a whipping boy for years and years. You would be losing, and then you'd look at your schedule and you'd see, oh, look, here comes the Baylor Bears. You could just pencil in a W for that one. That's a victory. Now the Bears aren't a joke. In fact, they're not just the class of the Big 12. They are a team that is considered possibly a title contender. I agree with this analysis. However, if you are a fan of the Baylor Bears, or if you are just a team that's looking to try and find a way into that top 4 spot, here's an interesting stat about the Baylor Bears that might pull them out of top 4 contention, at least in the minds of some. They're not a top 4 team to me. My top 4 goes Ohio State, TCU, Alabama, and give me some time to think about that one. I didn't have it in front of me, but not Baylor though. Baylor's around 6. Here's the thing. Baylor is underneath Art Briles, who is their head coach. They are 10-41 away from home. They boast just 10 victories and 41 losses on the road, which is huge because you're going to be playing some games in neutral locations. You'll be playing some games on the road where, you know, you're going to play against some tough teams with your national championship run on the line. With the 14 playoff, the thing that I like the most is that, yeah, a team can lose a game. You can lose a game and not be considered out of the running for a national championship. That is so good. Oh my goodness. It's like a weight off of everyone's shoulders. Do you have to go undefeated? You don't have to go undefeated. You can lose one. If your schedule is really, really tough, you might get away with 2, and you can still have a shot to play for a national title game. Where things start to go a little bit wrong, though, is if you're losing games against teams that you ought to beat, then you don't have a shot. And Baylor plays Texas on the road, a very good defensive school. I believe that they play TCU on the road, which is the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion. You've got a lot of things against this Baylor team if their road record is going to be what it is. They're going to have to solve some of these problems. Because here's the thing. Playing on the road is difficult. It's harder to hear in a hostile environment. It's harder to move the ball around. It's harder to audible, make changes at the line. A lot of these teams, you know, they hold up a card on the sideline. You look at the card, and that's the play. So you can kind of get around it, but you still need to try and figure out how to master these hostile environments. And in the case of the Baylor Bears, it's hard to look at them with the talent that they've had on that team and understand exactly why they haven't been able to win. They had Robert Griffin III at quarterback. They've had Bryce Petty. They've had Leish Seastrunk at running back. They've had Kendall Wright at wide receiver, who is a monster and a speedster. I've seen so much talent on this team over the past few years. It's perplexing that they can't seem to win on the road, and they're not getting destroyed on the road. It's 1 or 2 points here and there. You lose on a 2-point conversion, you lose in overtime, you lose on a field goal. But guess what? They have failed to win 41 times out of 51 games on the road under Coach Art Briles. And what that tells me is that's a coaching situation. That's a coach that is unable to get his team to win football games when the game is close, when the game is on the line. In those clutch moments, if you care to say so. And you are listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. I want to revisit the Derrick Rose story a little bit more because, A, it's absolutely sickening. It's one of the worst stories of the summer, and we've had a lot of stories this summer that have just been bad as far as athletes go, as far as athletes not behaving themselves properly. You just want to believe that there's something more here, and it's not like Derrick Rose is a bad guy. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I know for a fact what Derrick Rose did and did not do, but the NFL in particular has had to deal with a number of black eyes, but the NBA has kind of ducked that. A lot of the NBA's stars haven't necessarily been guys that'll get in trouble off the floor. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, James Harden, a lot of the stars in the NBA really haven't been in that same spotlight that you see happen with the NFL with guys like a Ray Rice and an Adrian Peterson. And this is the NBA's first real test, but at least you haven't seen the door open up some more, but maybe you will. It almost seemed like an epidemic for the NFL. Like once the Adrian Peterson thing happened, then followed by that was Ray Rice, and followed by Ray Rice was Greg Hardy of the Carolina Panthers, who choked his girlfriend on a pile of guns. That's like two bad things in one thing. That's like that story would have been comical had it not been for the abuse situation in it, just because you just have to look at that and go, really, dude? Honestly? You know, and you've had players driving around high with their child in the car, and it's too many things for the NFL. And the NBA, you hope that this is not the first step in falling down a flight of stairs. You hope that this is not a first misstep, that this isn't an epidemic for the NBA, and that we're not having other stories pop up. Because I guarantee you, Derrick Rose isn't the first guy that's ever been extorted. I mean, she's not extorting him, but Derrick Rose's lawyers believe that she's just doing this for money. And if that's the case, he's not the first guy. So there's so much detail in this story that it leads me to believe that there's something more there. And it scares me. It scares me not just for Derrick Rose, but as a sports fan. Because kids look up to athletes as role models. And that I don't want my little brother looking up to that. This is Clutch with Keon Rose. We'll be back next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After some patchy morning fog, another good-looking day for your Thursday with some sunshine. A little warmer, highs near 85 tonight. A few clouds, not as cool, lows near 65 for Friday. Partly cloudy, highs 85 to 87 with an isolated shower or storm possible for the weekend. Come to the Norris auction every Saturday night in Trenton starting at 6 p.m. with bargains galore. There's something different and exciting every Saturday night at the Norris auction just off I-59 on Highway 136 West Trenton. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's and Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's and Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
It's a lot of doom and gloom today in the sporting world. Kyrie Irving, the Cavaliers guard, his knee injury may keep him out until January. Former NBA star Daryl Dawkins died of a heart attack today at the age of 58. There's a young woman that's alleging that Derrick Rose drugged and gang raped her at her home. There's a whole lot of bad stories, and I'm going to put myself on blast here for a little bit. I don't like it when all the media ever covers is bad stories. More bad stories about athletes, more athletes doing the wrong thing, and then we behave as though guys never do the right thing. And to be fair, it doesn't sell. Okay, if you talk about a story involving somebody doing the right thing or doing a nice thing, everyone goes, "Oh, look, it's a fluff piece. You're not trying to be serious. You're not trying to be gritty." It's like all our society wants is angst and sadness. And we just, "Oh, look, here's Steve Sarkisian and he's drunk. Let's walk him out into the public square and shame him." And that's not, I don't believe that anyone does that as their purpose. I know that when I talked about Steve Sarkisian earlier this week and I questioned his leadership abilities, I'm not doing that to shame. I'm doing that to bring to light a man in a situation that many of us can be in, that many of us have the opportunity to be in. Everybody has got an opportunity in life where they're a leader, where they're a person in a position of power, where they're a person who other people listen to, whether that's being a father, whether that's being someone's boss, whether that's being an older brother or an older sister. Whatever the case may be, you're a pastor of a church. Somebody is looking up to you, and you have to make the right decisions. And I think that talking about Steve Sarkisian and what happened to him can help the rest of us learn from his mistakes, as I hope he will also. We're not here to shame, but it does come off that way if your coverage around the clock, all 24/7, every day of the week, 247, 365 is, and look, here's a guy that did another thing wrong, and here's a guy that did another thing wrong. And we can go on forever and ever and ever. And it bothers me that that's the coverage. All we do is talk about the bad that these guys do. And we don't talk about as often the J.J. Watts of the world who, go out with fans on their prom night just because they asked them to and they felt alone. We don't talk about that as often. It's not as fun. It seems fluffy. You know, we see it in our movies. We don't like our movies to be happy. We talk about Man of Steel, which is a movie I actually like, but I'm going to go at it a little bit here. Superman is a character that is supposed to inspire hope. And what did they do with that movie? They made it dark and gritty. I mean, we do that to everything. That's the way our culture is today. We don't want to be happy because happiness has this perception to it that it's not serious. I mean, you look at CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, and all they cover is every tragedy. Like the moment Ebola comes to the United States, it's Ebola for 2 weeks, 24/7 coverage, wall-to-wall coverage of Ebola. We've got an attack, and it's wall-to-wall coverage of attack. Like, people don't do nice things in this world anymore. I don't buy that. People do. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk about a story that made me happy. A story about an athlete, somebody in sports doing the right thing for somebody. And that is going to be Jose Bautista of the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a guy that I appreciate right now because he's standing up for his teammate. Now, the team that the broadcast team that covers the Toronto Blue Jays, they basically had a young player, a rookie. His name is Devon Travis. Devon was being asked to do a piece for them. They were going to give him a rookie makeover. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's, if we're going to talk about fluff pieces, that's a fluff piece. That's here's a rookie. Let's dress him and talk about how cool it is. The issue comes into play when the broadcast team made Travis pay for the rookie makeover. They didn't pay for it. He paid for it. He's a rookie. He doesn't have the big $1 million contract of an Albert Pujols, you know, the Josh Hamilton albatross of a contract. He's being paid like a rookie. And he had to pay for a makeover that he didn't necessarily want. And you ask, well, how is it that someone could make Devon Travis pay for a makeover? Well, he's got media obligations to the team. And the team, the same company that owns the team, I should say, is the same company that owns the group that's doing the broadcast production. This is like the ultimate conflict of interest, which is funny because that's the reason that they used for not paying for the suit in the makeover, was because it's supposed to be a conflict of interest, that they were performing journalism, and that's a conflict of interest for them, so he had to pay for the suit. The only issue is if you and the company decide that he has to pay for the suit, every second of your broadcast, by the way, you two companies being married together, is a conflict of interest. That's one. Two, a rookie makeover is not journalism. Are we serious right now? That's not journalism. That is fluff. It's entertainment. It might be entertaining for some people. You might be able to pull in somebody who is, you know, somebody who's not a huge fan of the game. They just happen to be watching and they go, oh, look, I know fashion. I maybe don't know baseball, but I know fashion. I understand the purpose it serves. I get that. What I don't understand is how that's journalism. It's not. You're being entertaining. Pay for the guy's suit. Well, Jose Bautista, who is making the bigger money and making the contract, has decided he's boycotting them. They asked Jose Bautista for an interview. He's not doing it. He's been interviewed by other teams, and this has been going on since about May. He's done interviews with other broadcast teams, just not those guys, because he's sticking up for his teammate. I appreciate that. That's what sports are about. That is the beauty of sport. Here's the thing. We watch sports, and I'm a nerd, so I know I'm very, very guilty of this. We watch sports, and we obsess over the numbers and the data and the stats, and you can go deeper for the advanced analytics. You watch in baseball, the stat that really matters is the score, who won, who lost. but we like to go in deeper. Who's got the best WAR statistics, or in basketball, who's got the highest usage rate, or whatever the case may be, quarterback rating. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of obscure metrics that just go down into levels that are so far and so unnecessary that you would have to be a nerd only like to enjoy it, to even begin to enjoy it. There's some point in which you can go so deep into stats. That's math homework. That's calculus. And I'm not interested in doing calculus right now. I just want to watch the game. But you can go deep into the stats. When it comes to sports, though, what that foundation is built upon, though, is things like teamwork. There's things like having a guy's back. That we like these things because all of these stats come together to tell us a story of what happened. Sports are played by people and are therefore about people. And we can often forget that. You know, you watch a movie like Moneyball where a team is put together using their statistics, and you know, we forget about the heart of the game and the passion of the game and how much the will to win factors into generating any of those numbers at all. And what I like about this story is that Joey or Jose Bautista, he's also known as Joey Bats, so I fall to that sometimes. He's a guy that he's not forgotten what it's about. He's being a very good teammate. And chemistry is underrated in sports. I think when we talk about, you know, a team that's seen as a dream team, and I remember Vince Young was with the Philadelphia Eagles a few years back, and he mistakenly called that team a dream team. He called, and the reason why it was a mistake is because the team was in practice. Okay, they hadn't played any games together. They hadn't played even any preseason games together. They just had a lot of great talented players. LaShawn McCoy at running back, Deshaun Jackson at wide receiver, and the team looks nothing like this now. But Michael Vick at quarterback, when Michael Vick was playing extremely great football, and he called the team a dream team, and the team underachieved greatly. To my amusement. I enjoyed every second of it, but much to their own chagrin. And I believe they would have told Vince Young, if they had known that whole dream team thing was going to grow legs and become the nationally reported story that it turned out being, then Vince Young, I think his teammates would have said, hey bro, easy on the dream team talk. But chemistry, the team didn't have any yet. Not 1 ounce of chemistry. And I think not only did they buy into it, I think a lot of us bought into it. Like, that team is going to be a fast team. That team is going to be incredibly hard to block and incredibly hard to tackle. And then they turned out to be none of those things because they just didn't gel very well. They had a lot of pieces, but the pieces didn't fit together yet. And I think if they had longer, maybe they do fit together. Who knows? But when you see this in sports, you've got to take your eyes off of the train wrecks. You've got to take your eyes off of the Derrick Roses sometimes and the Kyrie Irvings and look at what we watch this for. We watch it for the teamwork, and we watch it for the guy playing for the name on the front of the jersey and not for the one on the back. And I respect Jose Bautista a ton for what he did for his young teammate Devon Travis. When it comes to college football, and we're all very excited for the return of it, I personally am of the belief that the best conference in football is still the SEC. And I've been, reading the news and going through things, and I think a lot of people would like to crown the Pac-12 as the best conference already. I think a lot of people are looking at Arizona. They're looking at USC. Oregon may have lost Marcus Mariota, but they're not going anywhere. You look at all of these teams, and you want to say, yeah, here's a conference that can challenge the SEC, and they can. Not going to take that away from them. They definitely can. But the reason why the SEC is the best conference in football is because of how deep it is. I mean, I named a few teams for the Pac-12. There's twice as many that good in the SEC. Eric Judd, who you can listen to from 11 to noon here on Hot News Talk Radio, is a huge Arkansas fan. Arkansas is not even the best team in the SEC. They've suffered an injury to one of the running backs already, and they're still really, really good. Like, they could beat most teams in the Pac-12, no problem. No problem. The SEC has got the depth of Mississippi State and Arkansas and Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, the list goes on. If any of these teams could be competing late in the year, late in December, for that playoff spot, or late November, rather, for that playoff spot, one of the 4 spots, any one of them. Now, my money, and I feel like I might be alone on this. I'm looking at a lot of the polls, and Tennessee is ranked 25th. Okay? And I understand why. They're not, if you just go off of paper, they're not the best team in the SEC. But the way that their schedule works out, and the fact that they're in the SEC East, which is the easier of the two, I think that sets Tennessee up for an opportunity to win the SEC title game. I think the Tennessee Volunteers, I don't know if they make the playoff this year. If they can stay undefeated, maybe. But I think that they've got as good a shot as anybody. I'm Keon Rose. You've been listening to Clutch. I'll be on the Eric Judd Show tomorrow at 11 o'clock to promote the moving of Clutch from now to 1 o'clock. Stay tuned for Megan McCain.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy.